Hushlings, the following debriefing is sensitive in nature. We cover topics concerning true crime, based on actual events. There is discussion of murder and sexual assault. If these topics are uncomfortable for you, we encourage you to listen to one of our lighter debriefings within our catalog, or check us out on our next debriefing. We will now proceed to debriefing 49, the Cheshire home invasion murders.
Good evening, Hushlings, and welcome. I present your preceptors to the underbelly of the void, the whispers of conjecture, and the known of the unknown. Thus begins the conclave of the Hush Hush Society.
More testimony expected today in the trial of one of the two men charged in that shocking home invasion in Connecticut. It comes a day after jurors heard a detective describe one of the men's chilling confessions. Andrea Canning has more now from New Haven, Connecticut. Good morning, Andrea.
Good morning, Robin. And that detective said Stephen Hayes was, quote, flat and quiet that day. But what he had to say in those hours after the crime was absolutely horrific. Detective Anthony Buglioni relived Stephen Hayes' 70-minute emotionless confession for the jury, taken shortly after he was arrested for the murders of Jennifer Pettit and her two daughters.
Greetings, Hustronauts. Welcome back to the Hush Hush Society Conspiracy Hour,
where we journey into the world of conspiratorial mysteries and dark truths.
I'm Declassified Dave.
And I'm Mystery Mike. And as always, we're joined by our fellow nutmegger, Slick Frank Sanders.
I love nutmeg. I love nutmeg. Slick Frank Sanders here. I love nutmeg.
There he is. Put it into your cocoa. It's good.
Nutmeg.
You guys ever do a little nutmeg? A little nutmeg and sugar in your cocoa?
I love me a little key bump of nutmeg in the morning.
You could be like Amber Heard on trial.
Yeah.
I still don't know what's going on with that, nor do I want to.
She stuck some nutmeg inside of her tissues.
All I know is that she pooped in Jack Sparrow's bed, and I'm not happy about it.
Too much rum.
It's all loose.
Ooh.
In our 49th installment, we find ourselves in the good old 203 in Cheshire, Connecticut. The year is 2007. The month is July. And we are on the scene of one of the most heinous crimes the state has seen in decades.
Besides Ned Lamont.
Two suspects, Joshua Komisarjevsky and Stephen Hayes, broke into the Pettit family's home in Cheshire, Connecticut. The family was beaten, sexually assaulted, and tied to their beds before the house was set ablaze.
Dr. William Pettit was attacked, tied up in the basement, and his wife Jennifer Hawk Pettit, his two daughters, Haley and Michaela, were murdered. However, Dr. William Pettit escaped the clutches of certain death by getting through a basement window into the backyard.
This case turned Connecticut's laws on their head and had a significant impact on CT's laws regarding the death penalty and capital punishment. Both perpetrators were recommended to be put to death, which halted the momentum to end the state's death penalty.
We dig into the family, the suspects, what happened that tragic day, the investigation that followed, and the aftermath to a community and the Connecticut justice system.
But before we take a seat in the jury box and deliberate, be sure to check us out on all our social medias. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also come watch us play some video games on our Twitch channel. How fun, how cool. What games do you play? Do you play virtual chess? You like that? You play that old pinball game from Windows XP back in the day? You want to play together? You want to touch joysticks?
Are you winking at them?
You got that one guy on a VR headset that's got jerk-off instructions. He's like, I just wanted to do this.
Yeah, welcome me again, Hushlings. Welcome me again.
Oh, my God.
We also invite you over to our Discord server where you can chat with us and watch 300 plus episodes of The X-Files in our watch parties, which just started earlier this month and will be weekly on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Continue Season 1 with us and be ready for a long-haul journey. I'm thinking, so the first night that we did this, we did 2 episodes. So I'm thinking maybe if we can get away with it time-wise, just to speed things up, we might do 2 episodes every Sunday.
Yes, I think we should. I think we should. For everything Hush Hush Society, visit our official website, www.hushhushsociety.com. There you can find all of our segments, from debriefings to our Double D declassified discussions, our Double C cryptid chronicles. You can also purchase Hush Hush apparel, maybe some accessories coming, read some Hush Hush news, explore other conspiracies in our juicy ass blog section. You can also leave the oh-so-special review.
Yes, please leave us a review. It is, that's our call to action to you. Go on to Spotify. It's very easy. You can leave us a star rating on there. It takes literally about 5 seconds. It's easier than iTunes. You don't need to sign into your iTunes account or anything. You just get in there, hit 5 stars, say you guys are doing a bang-up job, and move on. Other than Spotify and Apple Podcasts, you can also leave us a review on podchaser.com, Google Podcast, or the Good Pods app.
And last but not least, a donation of $5 a month will release your earthly soul as you ascend to become a true Hushling. There you'll gain access to exclusive debriefings, Mystery Mike's Cryptid Erotica, that will leave you throbbing for more, as well as monthly conspiratorial news in the Frank Factor, which includes myself and Declassified Dave. You'll also get merch drops, sticker packs, and early episode releases. You can join today at www.patreon.com/hushhushsociety.
Well, we have found ourselves in Connecticut. We found ourselves there earlier this month with our buddy Nico from Upstate Unconventional, where we explored the melon heads. That was a fun one.
It was a good episode, and we thank Nico for joining us by the fire.
But today, let's solve a murder.
I don't think we're going to solve it, but... yeah.
It's been solved.
Has it though? Has it though?
Has it, David? Has it? Are you just so hard up to say that the guys that they caught are definitely the ones that did this? Well, as we previously mentioned, this murder took place in Cheshire, Connecticut, which is a small town with less than 30,000 residents. But more importantly, who are the Pettits? They're the typical American family, beautiful house, charming, quiet town, 2 daughters who were on their way to bright futures, pretty much anything you can ask for.
Shall we begin with a little background of the father and husband in the family, Sir William? Dr. Pettit was an endocrinologist in Plainville, as well as the medical director of the Joslin Diabetes Center at the Hospital of Central Connecticut, formerly New Britain General Hospital, or, as we like to call it, the locals, Nobody Goes Home.
He planned to run for Congress as a Republican, but ultimately opted not to. Yet he successfully campaigned for the Connecticut General Assembly in the election cycle of 2016. Jennifer Hawk Pettit, his wife, worked as a nurse and co-director of the health department at Cheshire Academy, a private boarding school in Cheshire.
So in other words, these folks had some money.
Yeah, they were doctors.
Yeah, making doughs. Jennifer met William in 1985 at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh while enrolled in the University of Pittsburgh Oncology Nursing Program, and later that year they married. Beautiful love story. Haley, who was 17 at the time, was the Pettit's oldest daughter. She had recently graduated from Miss Porter's school out in Farmington, a little private school for girls only.
God, when I was in high school, the hottest chicks went to Miss Porter's school.
Yeah. That's why they were put away in private schools, so that people like you didn't fucking fuck with them.
Yeah.
She was a high honor roll student who participated in varsity cross country and basketball. Let me tell you, just before we move on, people who live in Connecticut who are in sports absolutely fucking love cross country. They just love to run. Just run.
Yeah, run the fuck away from Connecticut.
I'm just saying, like back in my high school days, cross country, it was like the biggest thing in the world.
She was elected to the senior leadership post of the Athletic Association head while in school. She received a school award for outstanding community service and was enthusiastic about running a fundraiser for multiple sclerosis research. She was planning on attending Dartmouth College to study medicine as well.
Man, running a family. Yeah, there it is.
The Pettit's younger daughter, Michaela, went to Chase Collegiate School before her death and was avid to follow in her sister's footsteps for charity work as well as cooking. She was 11 years old at the time of her passing.
We have to ask, who would do something so malicious and horrific to anyone let alone an innocent family of 4. Well, our 2 perpetrators were Stephen Joseph Hayes, 58, of Homestead, Florida, figures, and Joshua Andrew Komisarjevsky, 41, of Torrington, figures.
Also figures. Yeah, also figures.
Figures.
For those of you not stationed in Connecticut, Torrington is like it's like
What a
if
shithole.
if you let some marinating meat get lost in the basement fridge, and then you came down months later and you were like, oh man, I really gotta throw this shit away, and then you go and you throw it away in your outside garbage bin, and then you forget to take your garbage out for another 3 months, and then you come outside and there's like flies flying all around it, and it's nasty and it's gross, and you look inside and you go, holy shit, it's Torrington, Connecticut.
Or if you've ever been to Skid Row in Los Angeles, it's kind of the same.
There's so many El Caminos in Torrington. There are so many El Caminos in Torrington, and I don't know why.
Is this just going to turn into an episode of us just shit-talking every fucking community in Connecticut?
We love you, CT. Keep listening.
CT.
Well, Stephen Hayes was convicted as an adult for the first time at the age of 16 in 1980. And after 2 years, he was paroled, but he violated it soon afterwards.
What do they used to call Torrington? Borington? was that one of the...
Shitholington? I don't know. Something like that.
Sorry, I'm done with Torrington.
Between 1980 and the day of this tragedy, Hayes was detained over 30 times.
Jesus, 30 times. See, I feel
Bad guy.
This is the thing. I'm not now California, do they still have the 3-strike rule?
Mm-hmm. I believe so.
Okay. So, there's the states that have taken up the 3-strike rule. You get charged with 3 felonies over a lifetime and you're gone for life. I don't necessarily agree with that. In certain cases, yeah, go for it. If you're assaulting old ladies and then the third one you come in and you just killed someone, yeah, go to fucking jail. Like no problem. But on the opposite end of it, someone like this who has been arrested and put in prison 30 fucking times, I really think that, like, you should hit, maybe if you're hitting the double digits, you should be put away for a really long time.
I feel like that's a failure of the system there.
It is a failure of the system because, I mean, we could get into prison reform and all that other stuff, but we're not going to. But there reaches a certain point, like I said, where if you're spending more time in prison than you are at home or in the open air, then you should probably be put away for a while. Like, I'm all for that.
Forever.
Not maybe not forever, but
I mean, think about this guy. He's 58 now. This was 15 years ago. So he was in his late 30s? And if he's been arrested 30 times since 1980, this guy's spent in 1980, how old is he? 16, 17?
16, yeah.
So so he's spent more time incarcerated in his life than he has. And a lot of times, a lot of these folks that get incarcerated go back, maybe not on purpose, but they don't really care if they get caught because it's 3 hots and a cot.
Yeah. But I also wonder how many repeat offenders like Hayes were put in prison in those double-digit numbers and could have stayed there for longer periods of time and prevented things like this.
Absolutely.
I mean, once you're in and out a couple of times, odds are you probably won't learn your lesson. So you make a good point. Just like keep them in there for a decade or two, see what happens.
Yeah. No.
Well, then they get old. Yeah.
I agree.
Think about it. This guy's a 60-year-old man now.
Yeah. Hayes was arrested the previous year for slamming a car window with a rock and stealing a woman's pocketbook. He was released on parole in 2006 and transferred to the Silliman halfway home, ultimately meeting Komisarjevsky.
Benedict Komisarjevsky and his wife Jude adopted Joshua while his mother was just 16 years old.
Well, Sir Joshua was not the nicest of teenagers, I would imagine. His sister actually accused him of sexually assaulting her in the early 1990s. When he was 14, he committed his first burglary. He was also arrested in 2002 for 18 home invasions. His defense attorney at the time claims that he informed him in great detail about every burglary he's ever committed.
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. 18 home invasions.
Yeah, dude.
Like,
What the fuck, man?
you should definitely be put away for some really long time. After ransacking the residences, Komisarjevsky would walk to the rooms where the residents were sleeping and listen to their breathing. Creep.
Wow.
He did this
Yeah,
because
right.
he enjoyed invading people's homes and breaching their security. That's exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. You have a
Bona fide psychopath.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking crazy. If you're breaking into someone's house 18
Just to listen
times
to them
and then
breathe.
you're taking their shit, and then you go to their room and you just stand in the doorway and you're just really quiet and you just yeah, that's it.
Mike, it's all about the thrill of the sale.
I don't even know I'm here.
They don't even know.
Was he breaking in to steal shit, or was he breaking in literally
Yeah,
just to
yeah, they
listen
were-
to people breathe and be like, yeah, I'm totally breaching their security right now.
He burglarized them.
Just got a kick out of it.
Yeah.
That was the loot.
He burglarized them, but at the end, he sat there and he had this kink where he liked to hear them breathe.
That was the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Fucked.
The sweet finish. In December of 2002, he was also convicted on 12 charges of burglary and sentenced to 9 years in prison. Komisarjevsky was described as a calculated, cold-blooded predator by the judge at his sentencing.
Exactly it. See? 12 charges of burglary, sentenced to 9 years. No, I'm sorry. But a judge...
15, at least.
Yeah, I mean, throw something serious at him, you know?
Why not 1 year for every burglary?
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
I don't know. A year and a half for every burglary. 2 years for every burglary.
Fuck it. 15 years for each burglary.
But it's telling, because if the judge who's sentencing you is saying that you're a calculated, cold-blooded predator, that person knows best. I'm sorry, but that person has probably seen hundreds of calculated, cold-blooded predators, so he would know. He or she would know. I don't know. The justice system, as we've said, needs help.
Well, unfortunately, he was released on parole shortly before this in April of 2007. And according to Connecticut law, prosecutors were obligated to transmit a transcript of the sentencing procedure to the parole board. But the parole board never received the transcript and was unaware of all the details about this case. So paperwork doesn't get transferred, things don't happen. These guys were not petty criminals. These guys were bad motherfuckers. Like, they've done what should be a lifetime of prison time. You know? I mean, one arrested more than 30 times, one arrested, more than 18 times.
Yep.
Now that there's some decent background on how these events came to lead up to the tragedy, you might be asking yourself what exactly happened on the morning of July 23rd, 2007. Well, on the evening before, on Sunday, July 22nd of 2007, Jennifer and her daughter Michaela went to a local Stop and Shop grocery store.
I know exactly where this one is, too. You guys know where Cheshire Stop and Shop is?
Yeah, I've been there for lunch. They picked up food for a family dinner Michaela planned to prepare. During their trip to the grocery store, Joshua Komisarjevsky noticed them and took interest, then followed them home. The family had no idea that this was their last dinner together.
According to Hayes' confession, he and Komisarjevsky planned to rob the Pettit house at night when the family was sleeping, leaving them uninjured. Both men blamed the heinous outcome on a change of plans.
Dr. Pettit was found sleeping on a couch in his sunroom when they arrived in the early hours of the 23rd of July, around 3 a.m. Komisarjevsky walked into the basement through an open door. Why the fuck that was unlocked is beyond
Because
me.
Cheshire.
Yeah, I
honestly,
guess. My dad used to leave the doors unlocked in Berlin.
I know, I used to walk into your house all the time. Surprisingly, there are towns like that, and there are people like that still have like that train of thought where, I've lived in this neighborhood, in this town for years upon years. There's never been an issue. There's never been anything, that has happened of any significance. So to those people, leaving their doors unlocked is not really a big deal. Now, to me, I've also lived in Connecticut for my life, And small town or not, I'm not leaving my doors unlocked. I'm sorry, it's just not happening.
Absolutely not.
It's more so the world that we live in, not necessarily where you live, because you could live in a
Yes.
beautiful place, as we see here. You could live in a small town where nothing really happens, and then there is just that one, fucking 100th of a fucking percent that something happens, and you don't want
one walk in at Stop and Shop.
That's it.
That's all it takes.
It's wild because obviously where my house was. My house was broken into 3 times when I lived there. You wouldn't think it in a town like Kensington, but it was a main road in between the Dirty Den in Meriden and Hard Hit in New Britain. And there's train tracks, and the backyard was in the train tracks. What an easy way to come in and out of somebody's house without being seen. Berlin, Connecticut is pretty similar to Cheshire, Connecticut.
Yeah.
So, just a little not too far down the road and a little bit closer to Hartford. Komisarjevsky found a baseball bat at the bottom of the stairs in the basement, then proceeded to strike Dr. Pettit 4 or 5 times in the head, according to his testimony. As you can see in the picture below, gentlemen,
Yeah.
homeboy got cracked.
Yeah.
But he's not really bruised. That's the weird thing about this
He
picture.
kind of looks like Joe from Impractical Jokers.
He does. Very much so. But you would think if you got hit with a Louisville Slugger in the dome 4 times, that you'd have way more swelling.
Yeah.
Well, this has to be after the swelling went away.
Well, this is him in
I
the
don't know.
hospital, so
Dude.
it's got to be shortly after. Either way, like Dave said, you would think that he would be a lot more fucked up.
yeah.
Especially with a
kind of.
baseball bat. Maybe
No, it kind of
once.
looks like he fell on like the corner of a table.
Yes. Yeah.
To step back for a moment to something that we previously just talked about. In their own words, they said that they went there with no intention of hurting anyone, and they were just going to rob them and leave.
I think they were looking for just money and jewelry
But-
and probably things of value.
Okay, agreed. But as we see, pretty much immediately as soon as Komisarjevsky enters the house, he automatically goes to violence. It seems like there was no actual incident to cause them to change their course of action. If they went there to rob this family, why would you walk in and immediately assault the person who's sleeping there on the couch, like not doing anything?
He must have gotten up and been startled or something. Because, there's no way you're just bonk,
Yeah.
And they had guns, and maybe he grabbed that bat as a safety measure, I guess, in case somebody did wake up, in case somebody did catch them, so that they didn't have to kill them. They could just bonk them on the head a couple of times.
I guess.
Well, he's no
But
amateur, clearly.
If you see where he hit him in the head, I can't help but feel like if you got hit right on the forehead with a bat
dead,
4 or 5, 4 or 5 times, I feel like you'd die.
I don't know. I feel like that whole right side of his face, nose would be broken.
just be-
he'd be swole
It
up.
would just be
Caved,
Yeah.
dude. Fucking caved.
It almost looks like, and it sounds terrible, but it almost looks like he smacked his own head on something.
Oh my
He
God.
Like the cupboard.
deliberately hit his head on the corner of a counter.
Yeah.
I used to do
You know?
that when there was no food in my mother's house. I would just hit my head on things.
Yeah, see? So that's what it is. His wife went to the store the night before, forgot his cookies, and he said, fuck this.
He wanted stroganoff, but they made fucking meatloaf. He was pissed.
Well, the violence continued as they used plastic zip ties and rope to bind his wrists and ankles. Dr. Pettit recalls one of the perpetrators saying to the other, if he moves, put 2 bullets in him.
The daughters and their mother were then confined to their rooms. The culprits then tied them to their bedposts by the wrists and their ankles and draped pillowcases over their heads.
After being restrained, the 2 decided to raid the residence for valuables and money, and after discovering nothing of real genuine worth, aka cash, in the house or in the safe, they stumbled upon a check register of $40,000. 2007, it's archaic, kids.
It is interesting to note that in Komisarjevsky's testimony, he did say that they were trying to stop the bleeding on Dr. Pettit's wounds, as the two only intended to steal cash and goods. So he kind of backpedaled and said, like, yeah, we did try to help him out.
We gave him a cold compress.
It still doesn't make sense to me. Like, the violence is pretty immediate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And then they're trying to help him. This is a direct quote from Joshua at the trial. Steve and I continued doing poking around for money and realizing that there was no money there. The mother had mentioned that there was no safe, and Steve had found a check register. The amount was $40-something thousand in it. We discussed the possibility of sending the mother down to the bank to retrieve a sum of $15,000.
He continued, we didn't want to withdraw the full amount of $40K in fear of raising some kind of red flag at the bank. The mother agreed. We assured her that if she complied, there wouldn't be any problems. We were simply there for money and would be on our way.
So he solidified it pretty much in court that they were there for assets.
Yeah.
It's interesting that he was willing to settle for $15,000. Like that's more than enough.
Yeah, it's a smart move. I mean, imagine going to the bank and being like, I need $40K.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of fucking change.
Good point.
Especially in 2007. Even now.
I do have this thought regarding this testimony. In my head, if someone goes and admits that they were somewhere for a robbery and all of a sudden a plan had changed and inadvertently they went and killed the family, just like along that thought process, then it turns it from something that was premeditated, first-degree murder, to something that was, a less of a degree. I don't know all the degrees of murder here, but
something that went awry.
But it would be, like third-degree murder, second-degree murder, whatever it may be. It wouldn't be that capital punishment, charge. So I'm wondering if maybe this testimony was something that they put forward to take that death penalty or that life sentence off the table, like an attempt to get rid of that as a possibility.
Could have been.
Interestingly enough, you will find out why they took it off the table, and it's not because of that. So being the nice guys that these two were, they tied William to a pole in the basement and decided to have Jennifer go on a ride with Hayes. There is surveillance video from a gas station that shows Hayes purchasing $10 worth of gasoline in 2 cans that were taken from the Pettit household. They went back to the house after that pit stop, and he took Jennifer into a bank to withdraw the $15,000 in cash. Now, the prosecution later claimed that this was evidence of premeditated murder, the 2 gas cans.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't for the getaway car to get to Massachusetts,
Yeah.
Jennifer told the bank teller that men were kidnapping her family and threatening to kill them all. The transaction was captured on camera, and the bank manager called 911 immediately and reported the incident to police while Jennifer was still with the cashier.
As Jennifer exited the bank, the manager reported to the 911 dispatcher in real time.
Wait, so this dude trusted her to get out of the car. They had their family, so I guess I can see that. But he trusted her to get out of the car, walk into the bank, and not spill the beans, which she did. And they did call the police.
Mm-hmm. At that point, why wouldn't you,
Yeah.
as Jennifer, I'm not victim blaming by any means.
No.
Yeah, we've been pinned for that one before.
Yeah.
In my mind's eye, I'm thinking maybe stalling would have been a better tactic, as 911
Yes.
was already called and police would have shown up. But at the other end of it, if police had shown up at the bank, then Hayes was in the car, he could have seen the police and he could have driven away immediately, went back to the house, killed everyone, and then just left anyways.
So I get the
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah.
She was just thinking of her family, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Only she knows. Can you imagine being that bank manager, though? After all this is said and done, and being like, fuck, dude, I screwed up.
Jennifer had suggested to the manager that the home invaders were, quote, being kind, and that she believed they merely wanted money, according to the manager. The Cheshire police responded to the bank's report by assessing the situation and setting up a vehicle perimeter without revealing their presence. Smart move.
Yes.
A perimeter of the house or the bank, you might ask? Probably the bank.
So yes, it was the bank. I think this is the biggest flaw in this entire situation, is that the police came to the bank because there was some inkling that the bank manager thought that she was an accomplice in this entire thing. So they went to the bank, set up a covert perimeter, watched everything, but what we're about to get into unfolded while the police were at the bank. Now, in a town like Cheshire, Hushlings, there's probably like 6 cruisers.
Yeah, and
probably not a lot of police.
I don't even know if they have police. I think they might be state police.
They might have state police.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned that they had an escape vehicle ready that they were going to leave to Massachusetts with.
No, that was a joke.
Oh, I was going to say maybe
the gas cans were for lighting the fucking house on fire.
Maybe that's what the gas cans were for, so that they didn't have to stop at a gas station while fleeing.
That was my thought, too.
No, that was a
because
joke.
If I was going to flee... No, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. If you were going to flee, the smart thing to do, if you were like a smart robber or a smart burglar, I mean, you wouldn't have gone to the bank in the first place. And you especially wouldn't go to a gas station with Jennifer in the car with him. But either way, getting gas beforehand, you could drive quite a distance without having to stop at any gas station. So within a certain mile perimeter,
I mean, on a full gas tank from Cheshire, Connecticut, they could have gotten at least into Pennsylvania.
Oh, for sure.
Hushling, we'll be right back after this short message. Greetings, Hushlings. We invite you to join us on Monday, June 6th, for our 50th debriefing, live on Facebook, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 4 p.m. Pacific. We explore transhumanism, where we integrate our thoughts and explore the potential benefits and dangers of emerging technologies that could overcome human limitations, physical conditions, illnesses, and injuries, with the belief that human beings may eventually be able to transform themselves into beings with abilities so greatly expanded from our current condition and form, even immortality. We also infiltrate the Yellow Sand Society, a secret society formed in northern China in the 19th century that focuses on personal salvation through inner work. As always, we will have Hush Hush Trivia, recap Season 5, and give you a sneak peek on Season 6. There will be giveaways and an all-new Preceptor Hot Takes. Come join the Hush Hush Society Conspiracy Hour on Monday, June 6th for Transhumanism and the Yellow Sand Society. Streaming live on Facebook, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. For everything Hush Hush Society Conspiracy Hour, visit www.hushhushsociety.com. Welcome back to the Hush Hush Society Conspiracy Hour. Here's where shit hits the fan. While Jennifer and Hayes were out, Komisarjevsky sexually abused the 2 sisters that were still held in the house. He actually documented the crimes on his cell phone camera from 2007.
Jesus.
Yeah, this is fucked up. Michaela, the 11-year-old, was sexually assaulted, and evidence that Komisarjevsky actually raped Michaela came from her autopsy, which revealed his semen in her body, according to state medical examiner Dr. Wayne Carver. During Komisarjevsky's interrogation, he stated that he thought Michaela was 14 or 16. Like, that makes it any fucking better.
That changes nothing.
Oh, jeez.
I thought she was a teenager.
What the fuck?
Forensic tests revealed that there was bleach on Michaela's clothes, implying that Komisarjevsky attempted to remove DNA evidence from the assault. According to Hayes, Komisarjevsky provoked him into raping Jennifer Hawk Pettit. Dr. Pettit could hear the entire assault. He yelled as one of the intruders said, "Don't worry, it'll all be over in a matter of minutes."
That was definitely Josh.
Jesus Christ, man.
Dude, I was researching this, and I had to stop for an hour because I was like, it's really close to home.
Yeah.
It's fucked up in any sense. And it just keeps getting more warped and warped and warped as you did more research.
Yeah.
Dr. Pettit eventually managed to flee, later saying in court that after hearing this, he felt a jolt of adrenaline and an urge to leave the scene. He's quoted as saying, "I thought it was now or never, since I feared they were going to shoot all of us at the time."
He didn't even try for a mad ditch to save his family. He just fucking booked it. I got a problem with that.
When this story first broke in Connecticut and kind of made national headlines, I had my initial thoughts, and then I will explore in my final thoughts what really cemented my initial thoughts just a year after this happened. But either way, this testimony of what he did in that moment just, oh man, I can't put myself into those shoes. I don't know what I would have done myself, but I do know that I would not have left my family there.
No, I probably would have fought to the death.
Yeah, if they're going to shoot all of you.
Yeah, I'm going down swinging. Especially for the people that you've created.
Yeah.
And the person that helped you create those people, you know, your life partner. Hayes claimed that while raping Dr. Pettit's wife on the living room floor, Komisarjevsky barged in and announced that Dr. Pettit had escaped. Jennifer was then strangled and murdered by Hayes. According to several investigators, Hayes raped her after she was slain, I guess making him a necrophiliac or something like that. I don't know. But this is the thing that gets me. When whoever said, "Don't worry, it'll all be over in a matter of minutes," that's when his wife is being raped above him.
Yeah.
While he's in the basement. Now, if you were able to get loose, you can't find a single thing in that basement to fuck somebody up.
That was my
with.
thought also. You're in the basement. That's probably the most likely area, other than maybe your backyard shed, where you would have something that can be formed as a weapon.
Dude, rip a pipe off the fucking ceiling.
Burn your little hands, dude. Like, see, this is the thing that gets me, is that, well, in my basement, when I lived with my father, there were loaded weapons. So
we are not victim blaming. We are not victim blaming. We
not
are not victim
whatsoever.
Blaming. We're not victim blaming.
We are just saying what we would do in this situation because,
yes.
I mean, granted, we lived down the street.
We gotta make that incredibly clear.
We are not bigots. We are not victim shaming or blaming. But in this situation, if I was stuck in my basement and my family was threatened like that, 1, there were guns in the basement. 2, I could have totally found something like a torque wrench and bonked you on the fucking head with it when you weren't looking. But he didn't try. He just dipped out to the backyard with a head wound and was just like, in his Joe boxers, you know, like, because it's 3 a.m. when it happened. I would say this is probably 9, 10, 11 in the morning at this point.
Yeah, because they did go to the bank, so the bank had to be open at some point.
Yeah. At least 9 a.m. At least.
Wow. Both daughters were doused with gasoline while chained to their beds. They started a fire and then fled the site.
Haley and Michaela died as a result of smoke inhalation. Haley escaped her bindings and ran out of the bedroom into the corridor where she collapsed and died. Her body was discovered at the top of the stairs with 3rd and 4th degree burns on her feet, although it was unclear if the wounds occurred before or after her death.
Michaela's body was discovered in her room. Her hands were still bound to her bed. Dr. Pettit had managed to break himself from his bonds, like we said before, escape the house, crawl through the backyard, and run to a neighbor's yard for assistance. The neighbor was actually frightened in the beginning of this because they couldn't recognize him. Obviously, the motherfucker was covered in blood.
Now we're getting into timeline stuff, and certain things also don't make sense so far. Again, final thoughts. But Hayes and Komisarjevsky, meanwhile, fled the scene in the Pettit family car. Police instantly spotted them, followed them, and captured them 1 block away after ramming into a police car. They were charged with murder. Overall, 7 hours had passed since the home invasion began.
So here's my problem with the police. They showed up when the fire started. So they got the call for the fire at the house. Why didn't the bank manager notify the police that this person was taking this amount of money out and had claimed that they were being kidnapped and threatened to be murdered at their home and the perpetrator was outside? Why didn't they look up that account and know that William Pettit's address to go to that house as well?
Yeah, it feels like certain parts
That's
of
a
this,
hole.
There was just, I don't know if it was the adrenaline of this wild situation or just fear or whatever it may be, but it seems to me, at least so far, that parts of this situation definitely could have been prevented.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still stuck on, I thought that there was a police perimeter set up around the bank after the call. So did they leave the bank before that perimeter was set up?
Yeah, I wonder that
It wasn't
They must have got through it, or
noted what car they were driving and went to go find it. Like,
that's probably a detail that didn't get mentioned.
if you're at, most banks need your address, especially back in the early 2000s, because they're mailing you your statements. They probably didn't have electronic statements at the time. So, you walk into the bank, you go to make this withdrawal, they have your name, your phone number, your address. I think cops could have been there sooner. Again, it's final thought stuff. I'm just getting tripped up.
All in all, the cops should have went to both locations.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Before we tap into the trials and convictions, we want to mention that these murders could have been prevented by the Cheshire Police Department. In a New York Post article from 2013, it stated, quote, "The audio obtained by the Hartford Courant shows that the inept cops were still convinced that Hawk Pettit was involved in the bank plan when they arrived at the family's house."
Jesus.
See, there you go.
So they were so caught up on the bank stuff.
That's the thing that bothers me, is that they were more worried about the possibility of this woman creating some sort of fraud situation involving the bank than they were about the possibility of a family being raped and murdered.
An account holder. I mean, a customer.
It's just that's what I mean. It's just like
It's weird. Bad judgment
where
on
are
a
the
lot of people.
priorities there, especially as law enforcement? How do you not look at that and go, all right, why don't we make sure that they're not being kidnapped? Why don't we make sure that they're not in any imminent danger? And then we can
At least send one car to the house.
why don't we make sure that there's not going to be a murder before we find out whether she's creating some sort of bank fraud here? I don't know. It's just it seems to me, again, in my own personal opinion, there's priorities there. There's a life, or there's money. And don't get me started on fucking cops. Anyways.
Cheshire Police Department Sergeant Robert Vignola said there are 3 suspects. One female is in the bank, and the other females apparently are in the upper bedroom, potentially, quote, dead. Following that statement, Vignola radioed, quote, "It had been around 50 minutes since the initial 911 call." See, that's what I mean. Like, they fucked up. Cheshire Police Department
and even
fucked up.
in their radio correspondence, they're still saying there's 3 suspects. You're at that point, you're still worried about the fucking money, man. You're still worried about the money, the bank, quote unquote, robbery or whatever. Like, come on, man. Come on.
Maybe the cops were paid off.
Maybe the cops were paid off.
Maybe.
We need to look into Robert Vignola.
Because that is a big flop on their part.
Big flop on both. The bank manager for going down Assumption Avenue and thinking that she was a part of this plot, and then a regrettable flop on the Cheshire Police Department for not at least sending one car to the household of the Pettits.
Hayes' trial began on September 13th of 2010, with a jury comprising 7 women and 5 men. Hayes' defense attorneys contended that Komisarjevsky was the brains behind the house invasion and was responsible for intensifying the crime's violent nature at every important moment. Gotta pass the blame.
Yeah, somebody's got it. As the jury pondered for almost 5 hours and returned guilty verdicts on October 5th, prosecutors claimed that both perpetrators shared blame. On October 18th of 2010, the sentencing phase of the trial had begun, during which the jury had to decide whether Hayes should be executed or imprisoned for life, and it was on November 5th the deliberations began.
5 hours for a guilty verdict. That's pretty quick. Pretty quick.
Pretty quick. That's my kind of jury duty.
I was going to say that seems too long. I don't know what jury duty is comprised of, but for me that seems quick. Like it seems pretty obvious that that they're guilty. Why did it take 5 hours? That's my outlook on it. I don't know.
Jury duty can take fucking weeks, bro.
Why? What's the debate there?
Wonder, because I myself have never been on a jury, so I'm not sure what kind of hoops they make you go through. I don't know if they, as the court, make you, put in, discuss it amongst your peers for a certain amount of time, or,
Yeah, maybe there's a minimum or something. You have to discuss it for a minimum.
You sit there. I had to do jury duty in California once, and I sat there for 9 hours.
But I'm not talking about the jury part
in,
of it. I'm talking about when you're in deliberations, when the jury is already picked and you...
I didn't have to do deliberation, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, when the jury's already picked, they've sat through this trial, they've listened to the evidence, they've done all these things. Now they're going to go in private, in back rooms of the court there, and they're going to deliberate, and they're going to talk about whether these two are guilty. I'm wondering if maybe there is some sort of like, okay, look, you can't walk in there and then come out 5 minutes later and say he's guilty. Maybe the courts themselves say, look, say something about a certain time limit that it needs to be. You need to take at least 4 hours, or you need to take at least 5 hours, or whatever. Again, not sure. Never done this, so.
Well, think about this. The trial began in September 13th. And on October 18th, the sentencing began, and the second day of discussions for the jury began on November 6th. So the jury must have been present since at least September 13th, depending on how many sessions they had. Now, with this Amber Heard poop case, it's been many sessions.
What the fuck?
So think about a murder case. And not even just a murder case, a multiple homicide case.
The jury was split on whether to recommend life in prison or death on the first day of deliberations. On November 6th, the second day of these discussions began, defense attorney Thomas Ullman told the jury that the highest potential punishment for his client Hayes would be life in prison.
He's quoted, "Life in prison without the possibility of release is the harshest penalty. It is a fate worse than death. If you want to end his misery, then put him to death. If you want him to suffer and carry out that burden forever, the guilt, the shame, the humiliation, sentence him to life without the possibility of release."
Yeah,
or
that's
parole.
lawyer talk for don't give him the death penalty, but these guys did not give two fucks. I'm sorry, they don't. You have repeat offenders for pretty much their entire lives. They went in guns blazing. I mean, not literally, but they went in with the intent to cause harm to these people. So,
if need be,
I don't think it was if need be. I think it was definitely fucking planned. It was definitely planned because you got to, at least in. If you look at the history of like the lifelong criminals, their ability to go from something benign to something ultimately more malicious it happens over time. So like even talking about Komisarjevsky and looking at his past, like he started with, burglaries here and there. He started with this, he started with that. He did little things here and there, little petty theft, whatever it may be. Then he started doing invasions of homes, and then he talked about sitting in people's houses and watching them breathe.
He also had a sexual assault accusation from his sister.
Exactly. So all of those coming together, I think it was just a culmination of things building up for him and getting more violent with the way that he was performing these crimes. So he goes from, burglary, home invasion, watching people breathe, watching people sleep. It would have been interesting to get some sort of psychological analysis of this guy, especially, but to see if he had thoughts of murder previous to this, if he had thoughts about killing people, or if he had thoughts about raping people. Obviously he already had some sort of sexual assault, so that was already in his wheelhouse. But the rising tide of that violence and that increase in violence throughout all of those crimes throughout his lifetime, it was eventually going to lead up to this, which is why, bringing to my previous statement at the beginning of this episode, for somebody like that who's been arrested for so many times, put them the fuck away. Again, this is something that if you had come to him 20 fucking crimes ago and said, fuck you, we're putting you in jail for 25 years because you keep on doing this shit and you're only going to get worse and we're going to save somebody's life in the long run. Again, this probably could have been prevented in many different ways.
Well, think about it. In 2002, he was arrested for 18 home invasions. And in 2002, that was 20 years ago. So he was 21 years old.
Yeah.
He was a kid. He was a young
He was a young man who,
and he was already
Exactly.
seasoned
Exactly.
as a criminal.
I see what you're getting at, but it would be interesting to see the outcome of some sort of psychiatric evaluation like that.
I'm
But
sure they did one.
When you listen to those the interviews with serial killers, I feel like it's always split down the lines of their first kill when they're explaining it. It seems to always either be they didn't intend for it, it just happened, and then they started to get curious and kept on doing it, and they ended up, getting addicted to it, or it's something that they increasingly began to fantasize about and think about and plan out, and then bang, that's they're doing it and they're hooked, right? So it could have been either of the two for sure, but for this instance, I feel like it was more of a spur of the moment sort of thing. I don't know.
See, I still don't know if it was a spur of the moment thing. I mean, maybe the choice of the victim or victims, maybe the choice of them was a spur of the moment thing, but the intent to kill, the intent to rape was definitely there.
I can only compare it to interviews that I've seen of serial killers where they're explaining it. That's the most in-depth knowledge I have on the psychology of killers, so forgive me for that. But lighting them on fire just doesn't seem personal enough for them to be yes, I want to kill somebody, I'm going to light them on fire and then leave. Most of these crazy assholes that are stabbing people to death, they get a rush out of literally feeling the life leave somebody's body. I feel like that was more of them trying to somehow cover it up.
Unless the rush part of
It's
it
weird.
was the sexual assault. And then, covering their tracks, having no witnesses, that type of thing. I don't know. I feel like at some point before this all began, they had the intent of doing something. Whether or not it was leaving that place murdering someone, or it was leaving that place, fucking somebody up with a baseball bat, whatever, But I think the intent of sexual assault was definitely there.
I think Komisarjevsky was probably the sick sexual fuck individual that was really in this, and I think the other one just went along with it because obviously how are they going to get caught if those people are dead? You know?
On November 8th of 2010, the jury recommended that Hayes be executed, recommending death on each of the 6 capital criminal offenses. In a plea deal, Hayes attempted to negotiate a life sentence.
On December 2nd, 2010, Hayes apologized for causing the Pettit family anguish and suffering, adding, quote, "Death for me will be a great relief, and I hope it will provide some peace and solace to who I have harmed so much."
See, that's what I mean. This guy wanted the death penalty.
Judge John Blue formally imposed 6 death sentences, 1 for each of the capital charges. Blue then added a sentence of 106 years for other crimes Hayes committed during the home invasion, including kidnapping, burglary, rape, and assault.
His execution date was set for May 27th, 2011. Yet usually the process of the death penalty could take decades for someone to sit on death row for it to actually happen. And in August of 2015, his sentence was changed to life in prison. The trial of Komisarjevsky began on September 19th, 2011. This is years later. These guys were in the clink.
Yeah.
Just sitting there. Yeah. That's crazy. 2007, 2000, that's quite some time. His lawyers also accused Hayes for the murders. Again, the blame game. Claiming that he was the criminal mastermind while their client was confused and easily led and had no intention of killing anyone or raping anyone.
Hayes is incarcerated in State Correctional Institution in Benner Township, Centre County of Pennsylvania.
As of October 13th, 2011, Komisarjevsky was found guilty. The jury recommended the death penalty on December 9th of that same year. Like Hayes, in August of 2015, his sentence was changed to life in prison. He is currently incarcerated at State Correctional Institution in Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania.
It's one of those things,
Horrible.
and that is always the dichotomy with the sentencing of murderers, especially. Some of them don't give a fuck, and they will take the death penalty easily, and life in prison would be worse for them. And then there's the people on the other hand who would rather be in prison for their entire life than get the death penalty. But I don't know, man. Like it's one of those things where, you know, it's like that animalistic side of human beings where you want somebody to pay for their crime in the most extreme way possible.
Eye for
You
an
know,
eye.
in this case, not even an eye for an eye. Like realistically, they should tie these two to posts and light them on fire while they're still alive, and that's how they should take them out.
If I was a loved one or a family member of this family, that's probably what I would want the most.
So that's my next question for you both. You can elaborate in your final thought. Should these guys have been put to death?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We all unanimously agree that they should be dead.
Chopped up into little pieces and then killed.
Yeah, whether it was what they wanted or not, it was what the family deserved in this, as retribution. But also, I feel like in certain cases with certain people and certain killers, certain individuals, the world as a whole is a better place without them in it. Whether they are, you know, even if they're in prison, okay, you could say, well, he's in prison. He's never going to get out of prison. He will live in prison and be there for the rest of his days. But he's still alive.
Still breathing.
And I'm sorry, prison is not, a lot of these prisons are not as bad as you may think they are. There are plenty of people that are living A-okay in prison. So, you know, I don't...
Yeah.
Free tattoos, free meals, free workouts.
For some of these people, that's what really works out. So, in this particular case, I don't know, man. I just feel like
They're career criminals.
they need to pay for it. They need to pay for it and not be on this planet anymore. But yeah, either way.
Yeah, well, they're going to die in prison, so.
The Cheshire Home invasion murders had a significant impact on Connecticut's death penalty statutes. And the case galvanized supporters of the state's death sentence and was cited as a reason that any repeal of the state's death penalty should not extend to those already on death row. Makes sense.
The Connecticut General Assembly sent legislation to Governor M. Jody Rell. You remember Jody Rell?
I do, vaguely.
Yeah. In 2009, presumably to be signed into law to eliminate, as we said, the state's death penalty. However, on June 5th, 2009, Rell vetoed the bill instead, citing the Cheshire killings as an example. So she basically said, these guys shouldn't die, they should rot. But like we're saying, as collectively 50, 60 arrests, these guys are perfectly comfortable where they're at.
No, she vetoed the bill to stop the death penalty. She kept the death penalty in Connecticut.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
and she cites the Cheshire killings as an example, saying, like, these type of people are why we should not get rid of the death penalty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get this lady back in office.
Shit.
Hey, it's better than what we got now.
On April 11th, 2012, the Connecticut House of Representatives decided to abolish the death penalty in future instances. The bill had previously passed the Connecticut Senate, and Governor Dan Malloy signed it into law on April 25th. You might be asking yourself, where is Dr. Pettit now?
Well, in the years following the incident, Pettit married Christine Polliff in 2012. He met her during a Pettit Family Foundation event, a fundraiser. And the couple welcomed a son later in 2013 and is currently a state legislator for the state's 22nd district, which includes New Britain and Plainville, Hard-Hittin, and P-Block.
P-Block.
Yeah. This was a tough one, Hushlings. But that is going to conclude this investigation and the trial. Let's take it to the jury and gather our final thoughts. Declassified Dave. I think we're all kind of on the same page, but let's hear it. What do you got for final thoughts?
First and foremost, I want to reiterate that I don't see a major conspiracy here. This is a true crime episode, and I don't see, as much as I wanted to find a conspiracy of life insurance policy and this type of stuff, that Dr. William Pettit may have collaborated with these two idiots and maybe have gotten something out of it. All in all, I think this was a preventable, maybe not preventable situation, but a preventable murder. These two daughters and this guy's wife could still be alive, and I mean, in reality, Haley, the older daughter, she was around my age, maybe 2 years younger or so she would be in her mid-30s right now. Overall, it's tragic that this happened, and I think the system failed this family, and I think that these two career criminals should have probably been incarcerated for the rest of their life beforehand, or at least major time other than what they've done. I don't know how many times Hayes was arrested. He was arrested 30 times, but how many times was he arrested in Connecticut? Florida's laws might be different. There might be other states. I think that this is just a massive, horrible miscommunication between the Cheshire Police Department, the bank manager, and unfortunately, this guy lost his first family that he had. He has a new family now. As much as I wanted there to be conspiracy here, I couldn't find one. That's my final thoughts. I think this is a fucked up thing. It really hits home because it's very close. Preventable.
This is a tragedy. It's a terrible fucking thing that happened in our state and pretty much anywhere. These guys should have been put to death. I do think it was very odd the way that Dr. Pettit kind of went about things during this entire situation. Again, I can't put myself into his shoes. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know the things that were going through his head. I do think that he should have fought for his family, but that remains to be seen. I am not victim blaming. Yeah, Very sad thing. And these guys are fucking animals. It's gross. Terrible. This one sucks. Slick Frank Sanders, give us your final thoughts.
Frank's final thought. There's definitely some questionable stuff with this case. First and foremost, I'm not thrilled about the evidence supporting that Dr. Pettit got hit in the head with a baseball bat 4 or 5 times. And I'm not saying that to like rise any suspicion. I'm just saying I think that there's like some details and some portions of this story that are twisted or missing and not fully reported on, if that makes any sense. There's a bunch of gaps and strange twists in the timeline that kind of makes things a little bit confusing and hazy for me. I really, really don't like that the jury recommended the death penalty on both of these men, and they both ended up getting life in prison somehow. When you have the jury saying, give them the death penalty, and they don't do it, what's the jury there for then? I don't really understand. Why are you asking them for their opinions in the first place if you're not going to go through with their verdict, right? Yeah, just a terrible, terrible.
I think Dano Malloy and Ned Lamont are the greatest tragedies of Connecticut.
Yes.
Yeah, terrible tragedy in Connecticut. Really hits close to home. Very sad. Dr. Pettit, on the other hand, he's kind of turned something terrible into something really good. He's raising a lot of money. I don't know where that money goes, but I'm sure it's going to good causes, right?
I mean, either way, he bounced back. He has a family.
He bounced back, and he's doing good things for the state.
And he completely changed his profession. He went from being a doctor to being a politician. So, I mean, whatever he's doing for New Britain and Plainville, I mean, that affects you guys, kind of.
Yeah, he shows up at Plainville graduations. He does a lot of stuff for the local school districts, and I'm sure the hospitals as well, seeing as though he was part of that field. I'm sure a bunch of that money goes to hospitals and infrastructure and stuff like that.
If we want to get a good Frank Factor reporter segment, he is doing a speaking in Farmington on the 17th.
Dr. Pettit, real quick question for you. Why'd you let your family die?
I'm from the Hush Hush Society conspiracy, and right after I say conspiracy, he just punches me in the fucking nose.
Imagine the promotion for the show if that happened.
Yeah. You get a selfie with William Pettit?
You need the punch, man. You have to get hit. Well, Hushlings, that's going to do it. Was there anything that we should have discussed in this true crime Hush Hush episode? Did we miss anything crucial? Let us know your thoughts on this topic or any topic that we've previously covered. You can always reach out to us at our email at contact@hushhushsociety.com.
It's right around the corner, Hushlings, June 6th. That is right. We will be live on Facebook with our 50th, the Big 5-0 debriefing and 5th live show, where we will delve into transhumanism and infiltrate the Yellow Sand Society. We'll also recap Season 5. We'll be doing some lit trivia. It's going to be tons of fun. There's going to be giveaways, maybe a shirt, maybe a dope hat, definitely some more new stickers. We'll be doing some hot takes and sneak peeks at new thick things coming in Season 6.
Yes, that's right. Monday, June 6th, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, live on Facebook. Also, Hushlings, a brand new exclusive debriefing will be available Thursday, June 16th, where we will be exploring the Zona de Silencio, or Zone of Silence. It is a area in Mexico where all your electronic devices and compasses go awry, and major UFO sightings. And this will be only on Patreon. Ascend today for a minimal donation of $5 a month. Become a part of the society.
And as always, Hushlings, we continue our show just a few weeks after our final season closer. Season 6 will begin June 27th, and we will continue our series on Holocaust denial. Looking forward to getting into that again.
Chapter 2. Thank you again for attending another debriefing of the Hush Hush Society Conspiracy Hour. I'm Declassified Dave.
I'm Mystery Mike.
And I'm Slick Frank Sanders.
Until our next debriefing. Remember, the best kept secrets are hidden in plain sight.